Hello, welcome to another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. I'm Wayne Highlander with Bona Adhesives.
And I'm Rob Johnson with the Bona Training. What are you giggling about now?
Nothing much, Rob.
Something,
All right.
you got something on your mind.
We're going to do a show today on transitioning. But before we do,
That has a whole new meaning now, doesn't it?
yes, sir. But
So do
before we
you
do,
mean transitioning from
you know,
working
I'm going
to
to,
leading,
I'm going to
managing?
say, I'm gonna, from having a small business and trying to grow the business. I'll tell you something. One of the and I didn't even realize this. I never put this into words until the last maybe few days. I was thinking about this. One of the things that held me back from growing my business quicker than I did was guilt, and I didn't realize that how much that really affected a lot of the decisions I made. And what I mean by that is, I worked with my two brothers, and every day we get up, work side by side, swinging a hammer side by side. We'd be sanding the floors. You're doing the stairs, I'm doing the living room. He's edging the closets, whatever. Side by side every day as a team, getting these things done. And then as I start to like, we've got so much work now, and I need to grow the business. I need to be in the office organizing things. I need to be making phone calls. I need to be those type of things. The amount of guilt I had for not being out in the field with the guys, and maybe them thinking, "Hey, Wayne's doing the easy work." Not that they were thinking that. I don't know. Maybe they were. I don't know. Um, the amount of guilt I had for that, really, I think, and I also I have a great work ethic. I just do. So you can laugh at whatever you want. I don't care about. But I would say that of most floor guys, you're not in this business if you're not a worker. I think that was so ingrained in me, so instilled in me for such at a young age and onward, that it really kept me from growing the business.
Yeah, absolutely. I can
Can you relate
absolutely
to
see
that?
that. No, I mean, when you started talking about this show, of course, I was cracking jokes in my mind. Yeah, Wayne feels guilty that he's not going to be able to pass his wisdom on to the guys on the job site.
Mhm.
That's your guilt feeling. But when I started thinking about it seriously, that was probably the downfall of Pete and I's business,
Yeah.
was not doing that. It was just him and I on the job, so that's all we did. There was there was no time for prospecting, no time for marketing, no time for future forward thinking and where we're going to take it, and you know what I mean. It was just work, 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 and not look at that as being an important part of the business. When I look back now thinking that's they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other, or you're just going to keep pounding around forever and really not move forward.
I think it's the downfall of a lot of blue collar working class kids that grew up that way. And I remember like my father-in-law and people I knew growing up, whatever, would look down on guys that were like wearing fancy Dockers and whatever, and like, oh, that guy doesn't work. That guy doesn't work for a living. You know what I mean? And it was the amount of pride you had was how hard you worked and how much how much square feet you can lay in a day and how much you can sand in a day, and that's all wrapped up into that. And then when you leave that and go into that other, try to shift gears a little bit to grow the business, I think there's a big part of that is guilt that holds you back. And I didn't realize this until I was just kind of thinking about this the last few days. I think that was a big part of what held me back for a long time of growing the business. Because I felt like if I'm doing this, I'm not out there with my guys. I'm not doing my part to get the jobs done and what have you. So I think maybe we would talk about that.
Yeah. So really, what you should have done was sat down with your brothers
Yeah.
and said, "Hey, let's to take this to the next level, and by what I mean by that is making life easier for everybody as far as work is concerned and money, we have to make this change
Yeah.
and empowering them, making them part of the decision. I mean, because if you sit down with your guys and you have that conversation, they might give you some really good, some good, great ideas. They might tell you in a direction that you weren't thinking rather than just what you're thinking in your head.
You're just even that, even what you just said right there. If I would have been able to verbalize that right there and sat down with him and say, "Hey guys, here's the reason why I need to do this." I think the that side of me was so strong, that urge to, to work hard and be a hard worker and this, that, and the other, kind of overrode a lot of the other needs that I had. You know what I mean?
So you would have been a great captain on a hockey team. I'll tell
Well,
you why. A great captain, and I always use hockey, okay? But a great captain is one that leads by example. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like some
yeah,
of the greatest captains that you see were the first guys at practice, the last guys to leave, the first guy in the gym. Those were the guys, and everybody had to follow suit. So if you're that guy on your crew, and then you completely walk away from that
yeah,
without, maybe nominating another captain or something,
yeah.
where maybe passing the torch type of a thing. And that could be, of course, that's going to be tricky too. But um, I, I think I mean, really, I look back now and I'm like, that had to be done, and it never got done.
Yep. I totally agree with that. And I think that, one thing you can do is kind of reflect on your goals, remind yourself why you started the business and how managing it effectively allows you for growth, right? And reflect on your long-term vision of what you want the company to be, to kind of alleviate the feelings of guilt. Why did you get in the business, and what are the goals? And maybe, that would have helped align my what I had to do from day to day, if I just kept that as my, oh, this is the goal, to grow to so much. And maybe that would have helped.
Wow, I just said a bunch of things before, and now I'm reading what you sent me. Like, man, I could have wrote this,
Yeah,
right? Listening to their feedback.
yeah,
Sit down with your guys, tell them about the commitment, your commitment, and what has to change, and get their feedbacks and concerns. But I think the other thing too is it's gotta be measurable for them too.
well,
If
you know
you're gonna have time away, to focus on jobs, marketing, all that stuff. I'm not saying right away, but in 6 months, you gotta, say, hey, here's what we've done in 6 months since I've
yeah,
dropped out and taken over this new role. And if
yeah,
something that everybody can measure, and by
yeah,
of course measurement, I'm talking, everybody's pocketbook a little bit, then you'd probably you'd strengthen the team even more.
yeah. I remember a couple things here. Well, one is um I remember when I you know I left Highlander Floors and gave the business to my brothers and what have you, and then they had it. And I was worried to death, because they were, I did all these different things, and now they're going to do it, and they're not going to have me there. And it's like I was sick to my stomach thinking, oh man, how are they going to survive, and what are they going to do, because I made these decisions and blah blah blah. And as it turned out, they did just fine. So, sometimes
I
when you
love how
give,
you sound
yeah,
so surprised that
yeah,
they did.
they were making more money. But when you
The
give,
best thing that ever happened.
yeah, it gives other people an opportunity to step up and change too, which it can be a good thing. I always look at like a high school basketball team. Okay, so they have a great year. They're 25-6 this year. They had a great year, but they have four seniors. or three seniors on the team, and they're going to graduate. Man, they were the bulk of the score, so they're going to be gone next year. And gosh, what are they going to do next year? And next year, the juniors step up, and you know what I mean, and they become the leaders, and because they have the opportunity, and so I think that I think maybe keeping that in mind too would help. And I remember did a contractor. I worked for a contractor, and they did a ton of insurance work. And they had the new guy come into the business. One of their relatives came in the business, and he didn't. He wasn't the rest. The other guys were really good carpenters, let's say, right? Really good, super good carpenters. Well, the guy that came in the business wasn't a carpenter. He's more of a business guy, and he brought in so much business that they thought he was doing something illegal. They're like, what? How's he getting all this work and blah blah blah? And he guy was just great at networking. He was a great business guy and what have you, and that was his skill set. So I think it's interesting sometimes what you think. Um,
Yeah, I mean, if you looked at my dad and my uncle when they were running the family business, it was definitely my dad was more of the sales guy.
yeah,
My uncle was more of the crew leader, and I think I've told the story 1,000 times. In sales, my uncle could piss people off pretty good. Okay. But as far as running a crew, he was a magician. I mean, he could make stuff sing,
yeah,
make crews work together. And just where my dad, he was all like, let's play liar's poker for another hour during lunch. You know what I mean?
mhm,
If the roles were reversed, it would have been out of business. Okay.
yeah,
But, I think those two saw each other's strengths and, let it go.
yeah. I just wonder. I just wonder how many other people have that same feeling, and if that's why it maybe holds other businesses back. I just thought that was something maybe we could talk about. We talked about it before, of getting a mentor. I think probably if I could look back, one thing that I would recommend more than anything is to find a mentor. Find a retailer that maybe he's going out of business. He's been doing floors forever, and now he's going out of business, or he's slowing down, or whatever, or another craftsman that's successful. Now more than ever, in any time in the history of our industry, guys are willing to help other people. First of all, the communication is there where it wasn't there before. You would never, in your little world in Boston, whatever my little world, wherever I was in Northern California, I would never know a Sprig Lynn. I would never know a Chris Zizza. I would never know Steve Bratt. I would never know these guys, right? Because how would we know? We were on our own little, we didn't have social media. The communication wasn't there. And I think now there's so much communication and open lines available to us. I think for a young fella to or gal to have a mentor in this business, and I think it's huge. And why not?
Well, you look back 30, 40 years ago, I mean, our competition, they weren't competition. They were the enemy.
Yeah,
They were, we didn't want to talk to them. They didn't do anything right.
yep,
There was a completely different mindset now with guys. And as far as, like you said, you know, if you ask somebody to be a mentor, man, that's a feather in your cap. That's a pride thing. Like, wow, he, respects me enough to ask me for guidance and everything. And you and I both know hundreds of people that would step up to the plate and, be a fantastic mentor to anybody. Where, back when I first got into the business back in, the 70s, it just was a completely different mindset about who your competition was and what they were to you. And like I said, we were enemies.
yeah.
Nobody was
You would share nothing.
not
You
a
you
thing.
would not
Right.
even let people look inside your van to see what tools you were using and stuff like that, or
You would
sand.
steer them in the wrong direction, type of a thing.
Yes, yes, yes. That's absolutely right. That's the way that was a cutthroat world.
Oh
So,
man.
huh?
Hey, do you know how long I've been doing this? I know you can do my opening speech at schools and everything.
That,
I started with my dad's crew in 75.
wow,
I know.
that's crazy.
Some were
Well,
75. So
as
that's
it turned out,
50,
I did a
that's
poem
50
about you.
years.
50 years.
50
50.
years.
That's insane.
That is craziness.
In your honor, I did a poem about you. Would you like to hear it?
Yeah, I guess so. We got to kill some time here. Yeah.
All right.
Is it going to hurt my feelings?
Oh, you're a pretty tough guy. Why would I do that? In a little workshop where dust motes dance, worked Rob Johnson, giving fate a chance. With tools in hand and a heart full of cheer, he tackled each job, though the end wasn't near. With hammer in one hand and nails in the other, Rob faced every project as though it were his brother. That's kind of weird. But oh, how the wood splintered and screws took flight. He'd fumble and stumble from morning till night.
All right, I kind of like this poem now.
A ladder was his Everest, tilting in the breeze. With every step he took, dust and splinters would lease. He'd measure once, measure twice, then cut one more, and what started as wood turned to kindling on the floor. Yet, despite every mishap, every wobbly shelf, Rob smiled at the chaos, embraced his true self. Perfect, perfection's a myth, he'd proudly proclaim. All I need's a bit of patience and a heart full of flame. Through crooked doorways and floors that would sway, Rob built up a spirit, come what may. For clumsy he might be, with a flair for the wrong, but he'd strum out his laughter like a played song. So raise up a toast to our tradesman friend. With every small failure, he began to transcend. For in every mishap, there's a lesson in light, and Rob Johnson's spirit taught us all to take flight.
I want you to read that at my wake.
I will.
Okay?
I
When
will.
the guy says, "Does anybody have anything they'd like to say?" There you go. I
Yeah.
want you to read that poem because my son will be, "Yep. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, that's him.
Yeah. We'll
That's
beat the hell out of
definite.
him.
That's definitely him."
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So I've been doing it 50 years, right?
Yeah.
And now my son, he's been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
And my grandson, he's starting. So
Wow.
that's 6 generations. So Bum's been going back and looking at my great grandfather and everything.
Yeah.
So he's figuring that Johnson started doing floors around 1915 or 16.
Wow.
How nuts is that?
That's crazy.
Is that
I
insane or
mean,
what?
for your grandson to have on his van 6 generations since 1915, that's pretty tough to beat, man.
And this is all coming to light because yesterday, it was Memorial Day. We had to, we always have a big cookout, whatever. And Bum said, "Hey, that box you have? This is the craziest box. Hopefully, I can show it to you someday. It's like a metal box covered in leather, and it's probably 3 feet by 2 feet. Well, that was my great grandfather's toolbox.
Mhm.
There's no handles or anything, and it's pretty
Wow.
cool because he's got his tool belt in there, but he has a lot of old planes and hand floor tools by hand." And he goes, "Hey, can I go through some of that stuff?" And look, I go, "Yeah." And he took a couple of pieces and he goes, "You mind if I clean this up and put them on display?" I go, "No, you know, be honored."
Yeah.
I said, "So
Yeah.
wouldn't he?" And but it's hit me watching his two boys taking the tools out
Wow.
and "Hey, Buppa, what does this do?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a plane. I got some wood and
Wow.
I was planing and everything." And I mean, some of this stuff looks like Jesus Christ used it.
Wow.
It looks some of that stuff is so old, right?
I think
And
that's
I
so
looked at
cool.
my son and I'm like, this is their great grandfather's tools,
Yeah.
and they're, putting the tool belt on and working the plane and everything. And I'm like, this is crazy.
I think
You
that's
hear
so
about things like this, but I'm like,
yeah,
I can't believe that we're sitting here doing this. This is just crazy.
that's so damn cool. I love that, man. I mean, I love the history of that. I mean, you think about that man touching all them years, and then here's his generations down the road, and they're got the tool belt on, and I think that is the best.
Yeah, it was
That's
pretty. It was pretty cool. It was a
pretty
fun
cool.
Memorial Day, but watching the boys,
Yeah.
you know, with their three great grandfather, great, three greats, and I was like, wow, that's crazy.
It is.
That is crazy.
And you mentioned, as you said, this is the day after Memorial Day, and we thank all those people that gave the ultimate sacrifice for our country, so we have the ability to do this and live our lives. Thank you is not enough, but want to honor those people.
We had just like the classic. Who was that? What's that artist? Norman Rockwell Memorial Day.
Hmm.
My grandson was in his scout uniform marching in the parade.
Ah, cool.
He looked great, and then we had the whole parade with the fire trucks and all, small town parade,
Yeah, yeah.
um, and then the Memorial Day cookout and everything. I was like, wow, this
Well,
is Norman Rockwell stuff.
piece of America.
Pretty
Pretty
cool.
cool.
Yeah.
All small towns around the country. It's pretty slick. All right, so this isn't going to be a long show. I think the main point of this show is be aware if that is holding you back. That if it isn't guilt that's maybe holding you back from working on the business instead of working in the business, and taking that next step forward in the business. It took me, I mean, all these years and years before I even, it was subconsciously always there, but I wasn't, didn't even verbalize it till today. Just thought about it. So, okay.
It's another thing that you were talking about, that whole guilt feeling. I don't think it would be a bad thing either if once in a while, you boot it up, put on the work clothes again, came out to the job, especially if, let's say it was a real tough one. You know what I mean? So stay engaged too, I think, with, the physical aspect. I think it's going to do you well. And your guys are going to say, hey, when we really needed them,
Yeah.
on certain, there are those jobs where like, man, if we just had another set of hands, you know, tough coating jobs or, a tough start on an inlayer, things like that.
Well, now that you mentioned that, I mean, my thing was if I'm going to be there, and maybe this was still all part of it. Like if I'm not on a job, my brother's on a job, and I'm not going to be there for very long, and because I'm gonna be running out and whatever, I would do the closet. You know what I mean? I knock out all the closets, all the hard stuff, just because they've been on the job humping. And it's the same principles we always talk about when you show up to the job. Make sure you have an ice chest full of cold Cokes and some Snicker bars or whatever, and just make their life as easy as you can. If you're not going to be there all day and they're humping, they're busting their butt, pick something that they wouldn't want to do. Finish off the end rows on a long hallway or something like that, because you're just going to be there for a few hours of the day, and make their life easier. So it's
The
teamwork.
other thing too
Teamwork,
is
teamwork,
you're right.
teamwork makes the dream
You
work.
give you get the right guys and you give them some of the, empowerment. They they might surprise the hell out of you.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? They might come up with, hey, I know we've always done it this way, but I've always wanted to try this.
yeah,
Because I know we can get stuck in our ways sometimes, and like I remember when I took my dad's crew over, there were a couple of things I was like, I know they're doing this wrong. I know if I do this, and then, a couple times it worked and a couple times it didn't. I was like, oh, okay, that's why you got to do it that way. But, it gives them the opportunity to expand their own selves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the babysitter's gone. I'm
Yeah.
the it's this is my baby now.
Yeah.
They might surprise the hell out of you with taking control over jobs, and that could be even a real good quality type thing too.
Yeah. Well, now I'm going to go down this rabbit hole. Then there's two other things about this. I always say that, especially for young kids, man, you never, never, never know who's watching you. If you ever think that you're doing something, it doesn't get noticed. I don't even like that thought process. I mean, you first of all, you do it for yourself, but I think there's always someone watching you. You never know when your opportunities are going to come. You don't. I mean, I there's so many times when you see a guy that's quiet, he's working his butt off or whatever, and it's always noticeable. That's the guy who's going to get the nod. And the other thing too is, from the other perspective, when you're the boss all the time, I don't think people sometimes, if they're not the boss, realize how much energy it is to always be up and get the crew up and be the whip and making the decisions and telling, this is what we got to do and do it this way and blah blah blah. It takes a lot of energy to be that guy, more so than I think people realize until they are that guy. Um, how nice is it for once in a while for one of the guys to take the initiative, to do it first without being asked, to maybe to clean the van out on, you know what I mean, and do something extra for the boss, make the boss easier job a little bit easier one day. Just a small, you know, or get together. The boss is having a bad day, things have gone south, the job canceled or whatever. There's a couple things going wrong. Get together and go, hey man, let's make this guy's job a little bit easier. And just tell him even thank you. I know you're taking all the bullets right now, and just want to say thank you, man, for that. This whole, this is a community that we're here 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, working together, whatever. And it's teamwork. And everybody's important in that team. From the apprentice that you just hired, who hasn't learned everything yet, but he's bringing in the trash out to the whatever, and he's holding the cord and all those things to the top of the ladder. And when everybody's doing their part, it just gets better and better, and it just makes life easier for everybody.
We've had I know we both have had so many people reach out to us about the show, and I mean we hear it all the time. Like you reinvigorated my passion just because now I know that there's other guys that are going through the same thing I'm going through or
Mhm.
we went through, with all our goofy stories and all that stuff. And it's so funny how people like will tell me their story that's, right parallel with ours.
Yeah,
But this is another way, I think, too, to reinvigorate and get the passion flowing in your, number two guy or number two and three guys. It's like, hey, this is our chance. This is my chance to step up, take the bull
yeah,
by the horns, horse by the reins, whatever,
yeah,
one
yeah,
of those things.
yeah,
But this could reinvigorate their passion.
yeah,
And just think about it, right? If you got three or four people in one company with huge passion for the business and the
yeah.
work and everything, man, you're off to the races.
And a special shout out for the guys that are out there doing this by themselves. The guys that get up every day, and there's solo guys that work by themselves every day, and I mean every step of the job is done by with their hands. I have a lot of respect for those guys, man, and props
They're
to
a
those guys.
different they're a different breed. They they're, they're a different breed. And
Yeah.
Pete and my son are both, most of the time working by themselves. I just don't know how they do it. I mean, it's
You want to know how to streamline a job? Ask a guy that works by himself. A guy that works by himself will cut out all the unnecessary steps like nobody else. I mean, every step he does, he knows he's going to have to do all surrounding steps. So he will streamline that job and dial in that job like nobody else you'll ever meet. So yeah, I got a lot of
and
respect.
as so many people come to the schools, so many people that come to the schools. I'm really blown away by how many one man bands are out there.
Yeah.
But they've all told me the same thing. I mean, almost every single one of them, including Pete and my son, um, they never leave everything for one day. Like they said, no, no, we don't do all, we don't edge
Yeah.
for an entire day.
Yeah.
We drum, we edge, we scrape a little, and then, and because I was like, if it was me,
Yeah.
first 2 days would be nothing but drumming.
Okay.
Now I'm screwed. Now what do I do? Now I got to edge for 2 days and scrape.
Since
Uh,
since since you said that, I had a guy one time. This is late in my career. Like this is like the last 2 years of me doing floors. And he worked by himself. And he goes, "Hey man, is there any way you could help me come out Friday or Saturday, whatever? I can't remember what it was. Is there any way you could come out and give me one day? If you just give me one day's good solid work, man, I'll stay on schedule. I'm so backed up, man. My back's been killing me. Is there any way you could come out this one day?" And I didn't want to do it, but I thought, all right, what do you got going on? He goes, "I'm sanding this floor, blah blah blah." I go, "All right, man, I'll come out." And I didn't wasn't even about the money. I thought I'll help the guy out, right? I got there, and this son of a gun roughed off the entire job, did everything. He left nothing but edging all day long. The entire it was like a 3,000 square foot job. I mean, I get it. I'm not. It's not beneath me. I've done it, but come on. You're a young dude, and you're gonna go in there before me, knowing I'm going to come in next day, and you did all the big machine work, and I got to edge the entire job. Come on, man.
I had a guy. Oh, I can't believe you said that because I had a guy call me years and years ago, a sport guy, a local sport guy, and he's like, "Man, I am so behind." He goes, "I am just wiped out." He goes, "Is there any way that you could work this weekend with me?" And I could just hear the desperation in his voice, and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, no problem." And he's like, "All right, it's College St. Rose. It's a local school, not too far from here." And he said, everything's on the job and it's all hooked up. I just need you to, just give me a couple days worth of sanding and I might be able to catch up. I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, yeah, no problem." Uh, it's a medium-sized gym, about 10,000 feet. I walk on there and I just started laughing because when he said all the equipment was on there, I was assuming
It's all
that,
hooked up and ready to go.
oh, it was all hooked up and ready to go. And he even cut the paper. Okay. But I walked into the gym, I'm looking around and all I saw was one 8-inch Essex Silverline drum
Oh,
sander.
oh no.
8-inch. When he said everything's ready, I was, kind of assuming it was going to be two 12-inch sanders on a rider.
Of course, gym
And
floor.
I could probably get everything cut in one day,
Yeah.
coarse cut and then medium cut the next day. And no, no,
Oh,
one 8-inch sander, and I swear he situated it like right in the center of the gym,
oh.
so I wouldn't miss it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, that's brutal.
Yeah, so I gave him the 2 days, but
Yeah.
I remember talking to him like, yeah, I thought there was going to be a rider there. I'll give you 2 days, but I
Yeah.
don't know how much I'm going to get for you.
Oh
You
man.
know.
All right, Rob. Well,
But we're good people. We'll help out anybody.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you everybody for listening. Appreciate your listenership and everything. And this has been another episode of On the Floor with Wayne and Rob. Please stay tuned for another episode.